So if we took the book Mediterranean Breviary, which was written by Pregdar Matvejevic, a Yugoslavian professor of French literature, Croatian citizenship, and naturalized Italian, so it's a good mixture of the Mediterranean culture. The book is a work of celebrates the cultural richness of the seas, in this case of the Mediterranean, and the importance for an harmonious existence and coexistence between different peoples and culture. So the metaphor of the Mediterranean as a space of interaction and dialogue is particularly relevant to this work today that we have to do, and which means and include the collaboration and knowledge sharing that are essential to the environmental and industrial challenges that lie ahead of us. Here's just a short list of some key points that I want to stress in the light of what I was saying and for the work that we have to do today. It's imperative that we invest in conservation of marine ecosystems. Only through concerted effort between marine scientists and marine engineers, we can preserve biodiversity and ensure the health of our seas and for future generations. Decarbonization of maritime transport is an urgent necessity. We must take concrete actions to reduce the emissions and promote sustainable technologies. I'm talking as a mechanical engineer here. That's my degree. So I know exactly what I mean by reducing the impact of the transport. Our action must be guided by a science-based approach. Only through the research and innovation we can develop effective and lasting solutions to protect our seas and address environmental and industrial challenges. It is essential that we work in synergy with our industrial partners to address common challenges. Collaboration is the key to making the best use of available resources and expertise that ensuring the success of our initiatives. We must develop practical tools that can give a tangible impact on the lives of citizens and on the status of the ocean. Awareness and education are fundamental to creating a culture of sustainability and environmental protection. The protection and restoration of the ocean health as is a primary objective. Through conservation measures and targeted intervention, we can reverse the degradation of marine ecosystems and ensure a prosperous future for our lives and our seas. I conclude this speech with a strong call for collaboration and active participation among the two communities. Only together we can overcome the challenges that lie ahead and build a sustainable future for our seas and for future generations. Thank you for coming to CNR, to Rome, and I wish you good work.
And Michaela, if you could, I need to put do you have a presentation or?
No, I don't.
No. Okay, so we can hear you now. So the floor is for you.
Okay, very good. Good morning, everybody. Dear stakeholders of the sustainable, of the SPAP, of the Zero-Emission Waterborne Transport Partnership, and of the Waterborne Technology Platform. My name is Michaela Gigli. I've been recently appointed Policy Officer for the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership at the Commission's DG Research and Innovation. And I would like to speak on behalf of my head of unit of the Ocean, Seas and Water Unit of DG Research. First of all, let me say that I'm very pleased to witness the cooperation between your two partnerships. European partnerships, as you know, have better chances to deliver on the ambitious transitions and contribute to EU priorities and policies by strengthening linkages and teaming up with each other. Hence, effective synergies maximize the possibility that successful research results are taken up and effectively deployed. In this regard, this workshop is an important milestone to deliver on the actions defined in your joint declaration concerning sustainable fisheries, ports, marinas, and logistics. As we gather here today, I would like to take a moment to update you on some key policy developments at EU level, particularly the work being done to design the European Ocean Pact. In this context, the triple planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss, the blue economy plays a strategic role in strengthening the EU's competitiveness and resilience, but also for maritime security, environmental sustainability and protection. So therefore, the European Ocean Pact is being developed, and it's aiming to be an ambitious, holistic, and forward-looking strategy, which will foster healthy ocean, seas, energy security, maritime security, food security, sustainable fisheries, and a sustainable and competitive EU blue economy. Now, the Ocean Pact is a comprehensive approach to ocean-related policies, including research and innovation. To inform this process, there has been a public consultation which closed in the middle of February, receiving over 900 contributions. Our colleagues from DG Mare are currently analyzing the results, and the preliminary analysis shows broad consensus around the idea of an ocean pact, with key issues highlighted by respondents, including the resilience and health of the ocean and coastal areas, sustainability of ocean-related economic activities, such as maritime transport, ocean knowledge, research and innovation, as well as effective governance. Now, over the last months, DG Mare has been organizing dialogues with various stakeholders, also in collaboration with DG RTD during the EU Ocean Days in March. Ultimately, the aim is to present the Ocean Pact in June at the third UN Ocean Conference. Now, the Ocean Pact aims, like I said, to include a robust research, innovation, and knowledge pillar, building also on the outstanding work of the EU mission Ocean and Waters, as well as activities implemented under successive research and innovation framework programs, including the partnerships. So one of the initiatives of the Pact is hence the EU Ocean Research and Innovation Strategy that federates different initiatives and capitalizes on the achievements of the EU mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters. And as you know, over the last decade, DG Research and Innovation has developed an impactful portfolio of transport, ocean and waters research and innovation initiatives. And therefore the Oceans Pact, the Ocean R&I strategy, and also the upcoming water resilience strategy that aims to fight against water pollution, can build on these successes, notably capitalizing on the achievements of the EU mission on ocean and waters. The mission, together with the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, has already made significant impact in addressing the current fragmentation of ocean-related policies with its integrated approach and science-based solutions to balance environmental, social, and economic dimensions. Now, for the Oceans Pact, the Commission will need to ensure coherence and alignment with other initiatives and policies. Let me again mention the water resilience strategy. which is important when we speak about pollution from waterborne transport in inland waters. Further examples of related policy initiatives is the new Pact for the Mediterranean for areas of shared interest in the blue economy. Then strong synergies with other relevant policy and legal instruments are important, such as the Maritime Strategy Framework Directive, the Clean Industrial Strategy regarding the waterborne, the Maritime Industry Strategy, the Industrial Decarbonization Accelerator Act for ports, shipping, and fisheries, then the EU Port Strategy, the Common Fisheries Strategy, a broader policy for the fisheries sector for 2040 that is being developed, as well as the EU Startup and Scale-up Strategy. The communication that will be developed on the Ocean Pact will also be developed in synergy with the Clean Industrial Deal for a prosperous and competitive Europe. So the collaboration between your two partnerships, and including also the Waterborne Technology Platform, is of utmost importance because it enables the two partnerships to work together towards a common goal of supporting the sustainable development of maritime activities while protecting the marine environment and biodiversity. By cooperating at both programming and implementation levels and liaising with other partnerships and initiatives, the two partnerships can leverage their complementary strengths and expertise to achieve impactful synergies. So the joint workshop today is a key step in this direction, focusing on very important topics and providing a platform for scientific exchange, showcasing of projects and discussion. Through this collaboration, you can fine-tune your strategies and development plans, avoid duplications, and support critical mass, ultimately contributing to a sustainable blue economy. So I look forward to the discussions throughout this event, and I am confident that your efforts will make a significant impact on water and air pollution and on decarbonization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michaela. 1 second. Now, yes. Thank you very much, Michaela. Certainly valuable words. Be a tough act to follow. So, yes. Yes. I did send it to you. Yes. Oh. Is it just started? Yeah. So, yeah. It's, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But you have to share the screen. Deve condividere lo schermo. Sì, sì.
Come si chiama la sua?
Avrei una...
Non c'è.
Sì, abbiamo...
Aspetta. Questa? No, quella.
Sì. Quella lì.
Ok. Li ho? Eccolo qua. Ok. Quindi questo e poi non... Sì. Sì.
Okay, thank you very much. Room full of engineers, and it takes us half an hour to put up a presentation, so sorry for that. So let's begin again. My name is David Abreu-Molins, and I'll be representing the Waterborne Technology Platform, and by extent, the Zero-Emission Waterborne Transport partnership. Just a couple of practicalities. As you will have noticed, this workshop and the call that our friends online are participating in is recording. If you do not wish to participate or to be recorded, you can leave the call, you can leave the room or go to the back. As you'll have noticed, this is a workshop. It's not just a unilateral conversation. So we are trying to have you as engaged as we can. First of all, we're going to set the basis, set the scene, and as soon as we start with the panels, you can participate, you can raise your hand, so that it is a workshop. And I'm going to introduce you to the two things that I'm representing, which is the Waterborne Technology Platform and the ZOOD partnership. And so first of all, the Waterborne Technology Platform. What is it? It's a European technology platform for all sectors of waterborne sector. The label of European Technology Platform means that it is awarded by the European Commission, and it is a label that it means that this organization drives the innovation in its sector. I think there's roughly 38 or 39 European technology platforms, and we are one of them. Within our platform, we involve all the waterborne stakeholders, ship owners, research organizations such as this, shipbuilders, maritime equipment manufacturers, you name it. We currently have 127 members that are representing the main stakeholders of the European waterborne transport sector, such as shipyards, etc. And we have to differentiate that waterborne means maritime plus inland navigation plus ports. So we're not the maritime technology platform, we're not the inland waterway transport technology platform, we're the waterborne technology platform. So we're representing all the people within this field. And we have three working groups that you can see here. We have the ships and shipping, we have blue growth, and we have ports and logistics. And so continuing with the Waterborne Technology Platform, 4 points I want to go through: decarbonization and the green transition, infrastructure and investment, digitalization and efficiency, and how this workshop is all about a continuous dialogue with the partnership and with you. And so when we're talking about decarbonization and the green transition through the Zero-Emission Waterborne Transport Partnership, the Waterborne Technology Platform is working on zero-emission technologies that will certainly transform the way we operate with the water. I spoke a few weeks ago at an event about building the European Ocean Pact, and the main message that I wanted to send through is that this European Ocean Pact is a chance to have a new relationship with the ocean. It's not only a document, it's not only an idea, but it's an active, alive process that all of you are together and building this. And so with the clean fuels, the hydrogen, the electrification, we are driving this transformation, this innovative thing. But of course, we're very aware that achieving this requires a joint effort and a joint approach, where knowledge from our friends at SPEPS and the expertise in the blue economy and our focus come together. So when we move to a very important point, which is infrastructure and investment, I wanted to pose a question here. So when we have European ports playing a central role in enhancing efficiency and sustainability, how can they improve their capacity for sustainable fuels and smart logistics? This will be one of the points that will be tackled later. And from Waterborne, we are always wondering what funding gaps exist for ports and fisheries to invest in climate resilient infrastructure. We participate in different EU projects, and there are different reports that we create to fill this gap, to find how to navigate these troubled waters. And then if we move to digitalization and efficiency, what role can data-driven solutions, AI, automation, smart shipping play in improving fuel efficiency and fisheries management? Again, one of the topics that we'll be dealing with today. And then an internal thing, which would be how can ZOOD and SPIP help ports and fisheries integrate digital tools to track emissions, optimize logistics, and improve monitoring? So this is your homework. Tell us how to do this. Then what best practices exist for digitalizing supply chains and fisheries and port logistics? Again, things that we'll be going through. And the last part, as was said at the beginning, that this is a continuous dialogue between ZUD, SPIP, with you, with all the members. And this is where we seek to align our initiatives. This is how we share our lessons learned and create potential joint actions such as this one. And so the synergies between SPIP and Waterborne like ZUD will continue to play a critical role in shaping the future and relationship of our oceans. And of course, this is a great opportunity to build a new relationship with them. And so now I'll be introducing you to the Zero-Emission Waterborne Transport Partnership, or ZUD partnership for short. And so what is ZUD all about? The main idea of ZUD is that R&I to develop and demonstrate zero-emission solutions for all ship types and services by 2030, which will, not should, will enable zero-emission waterborne transport by 2050. And so the objective is very clear: to lead and accelerate the transformation of maritime and inland waterway transport towards eliminating all harmful environmental emissions, including, of course, greenhouse gases and pollutants, through innovative technologies and operations. This partnership is member-driven, with volunteers, such as some in this room, thank you very much, who are driving this narrative and innovation forward. And so the pillars of ZUD are very simple. First of all, use of sustainable alternative fuels. Through this, we do scenario setting, we tackle fuel on board, power conversion. Second, we have electrification with energy models, energy storage, and of course, grid. Energy efficiency with design and operation integrations, energy efficiency technologies, renewable and free energy solutions, then design and retrofitting with new design, manufacturing, retrofitting, digital green with digitalization, the digital twin, zero-emission decision support systems, and last but not least, ports with bunkering sustainable alternative fuels, resorting solutions, and reducing emissions. All of this with the demonstrators and taking into account the simplification of the fleet into the 6 ship types that you can see here: long distance ships, cruise ships, ferries, inland vessels, short sea ships, offshore ships. And then we made some distinctions in trade and then some in line or tram service. And of course, we include both new build as well as retrofitting. And so this is your zero-emission waterborne transport partnership. The focus is all about developing the zero-emission vessels all throughout all these categories, deploying the alternative propulsion systems, the port and logistic integration to support the sustainable fuel and energy transitions. And of course, you'll ask, why does this matter? I know that I'm preaching to the converted here. We are all in the same ship, but it's still important to understand that all the shipping and ports must decarbonize to meet the EU Green Deal and the Fit for 55 targets to support competitiveness, while of course ensuring sustainability. The two come together. And of course, to understand that ports are key enablers for a clean energy supply, and that fisheries and coastal fleets need tailored low emission solutions that include these small scale operations. And so when we understand that all of this has 0.5, I think it's 0.560 billion in EU funds with very much significant private investment, all of this to accelerate zero-emission solutions for the waterborne sector. And so how to connect with our friends at SPIP, aligning waterborne transport with blue economy goals, exploring synergies with sustainable fisheries and offshore renewables, coastal resilience, and then what key policy recommendations should SPIP and ZUD push forward to support ports and fisheries? There's a piece of homework that we should have at the end of this day. And what successful models from other regions or sectors should be replicated, so success stories that can be replicated all around. And so with this, I'll pass the floor to our lovely Margarita. Thank you very much.
Stiamo condividendo?
Stiamo già?
Sì. Aspetta. Devo mettere solo...
Vai su visualizza.
questo. Good morning, everybody. I will try to be fast and present the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. Thank you very much, David, for addressing some of the key questions and already starting in our mind some proactive brainstorming. But before starting, I would like definitely to thank the National Research Council of Italy for hosting us and organizing the... Sorry? Well, meanwhile, I just thank, I don't need slides to thank the National Research Council of Italy, our colleagues of the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, and of course, our colleagues from the Waterborne Technology Platform and the partnership, because I really much appreciated what David stated in one of his slides. It's a continuous dialogue that actually has already started, not only for drafting our joint declaration, but in particular for co-designing the technical workshop today. We have spent a lot of time, but I believe that it was needed to craft a sound workshop today. So maybe the last piece of information that you need is the presentation of the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership, that whose aim is to boost the transition of the economic sector based on the ocean, recognizing the trends of the blue economy in the future, while as well recognizing as well that the preservation of the ecosystem is fundamental for the sustainability of those sectors. And by exploiting an instrument that was put at the disposal of the research communities of all the knowledge around, also the blue economy community decided to apply for this co-funded partnership. Basically, we are 30 countries that together with the European Commission are pooling effort to align programs for about 450 million euros to develop joint calls for proposal at transnational level and additional activities. Everything in our intervention logic, the starting point is the design, shaping, and ownership of our strategic research and innovation agenda, from which we have, let's say, streamlined five this year, thematic area of intervention on which the investment of the funding organization will focus. We address the digital twin of the ocean, the transition of a blue economy sector, including multi-use and multi-purpose offshore platform, managing sea uses, the blue bioresources, and the resilience of coastal communities and business, with a specific focus on tourism. And as I said, if our core business is the regular launch of joint calls, the first 19 plus 24 projects are the first one have started, the second bunch is about to start, but we will continue to issue a call every year. And of course, you can understand how important it is to discuss today so that our process of drafting the call text is not blind. We cannot be blind towards what's happening around us. So today and in the next days and in the follow-up of the activity today, we will definitely reinforce our strategy. And this is an additional reason why I would like to thank you, colleagues, for making it possible. Our projects are not left alone. We try as much as we can to support them also towards the market uptake by exploiting instruments that are putting at the disposal of the community, including the Blue Invest one. And we work, we develop, we give opportunities that goes beyond the joint call through the so-called additional activities. Among the many different additional activities that we do and that can be of interest of some synergistic action, I underline the portfolio of project, an activity implemented by our French colleagues from the National Research Agency that aims at putting together projects around a common topic. We will start from two important topics on precisely the sustainable fishery and aquaculture, and who knows that also by knowing a bit more the project funded under the partnership, we will manage to keep also our projects together. I will conclude with the two final slides. Our activity, again, would not be possible if we do not keep connected the national, the European, the sea basin, regional, and the global dimension. And this is done through the unfatiguing work of our Brussels cellule that is mandated to build the community. We have today two representatives, Claire and Angelo, that for what concern the EU level, are developing and working under the leadership of Claire on reinforcing the partnership collaboration. So the event today is part of a series of actions that we do in collaboration with the partnership. You see here two activities, one done last year on natural-based solution and one about to come, through which, as also said by Michaela, by the way, thank you very much, Michaela, for your words, through which we really want to add value to the European activities, avoiding duplication. Thank you very much. I look very much forward to the discussion today.
Okay, so thank you very much to our four panelists, and we can go to the next step of the program because we're a bit late.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Jappo-Lauesen. I work at RISE, which is the Research Institutes of Sweden, and I have the pleasure of being the moderator for the next session. RISE are members of Waterborne, and of course, Sweden as a country is also members of SBEP. But today here I'm representing Waterborne, where I also happen to be the chair of the working group for blue growth. So, as has already been mentioned, this is meant to be an interactive session. So now I would like for all of you here in the room and online to take out your phones or computers because we're doing a Mentimeter, and I'm hoping it's going to come on the screen. I can't do anything here because I don't speak Italian. I don't know what it says, so I'm just counting on the person up there. So bring out your phones. So we'll start this session with asking you some questions about your expectations. So I haven't said what this session is called, but it has already been mentioned. So it's port, marinas, and logistics. So let's see. Oh, I don't see the same thing here. Yep.
Is your Anders here?
I'm sharing it, Emilio, if you can hear me.
So we have to.
Sharing.
Questo dobbiamo vedere, no? Schermo. Okay. Johannes, you can share your screen now. You can try.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. So let me, can I close this? Yes, at the top there, you see the Mentimeter number 37656306. Or you can just scan the barcode. And I think when we see people logging on, you will soon see the first question. Okay, so what comes into your mind when reading the session name, Ports, Marinas, and Logistics? So maybe you had some thoughts traveling here. What's the first words that come into your mind? Just one or two words. Hope it's working for everyone online as well. Okay, so we're getting some replies here. Blue economy, transport hub, tourism, big vessels, international, buzzing. That sounds interesting. Poor infrastructure, not port infrastructure. Poor infrastructure. Need for efficiency. Excellent. So shipping seems to be something that more than one person mentioned. Sustainability, blue economy. Excellent. So I think one thing to keep in mind when we're having a session like this, working between partnerships, is I think we use words differently and we mean different things by the same words. So I think this is one challenge maybe we'll partly overcome today, but I think this is important to keep in mind. Oh, it's summer. That's a nice one. Someone thinks of summer. Oh, yay. I'm from the Nordics, so I'm thrilled about this weather. All right. Well, I think we will move on, Johannes. All right. So what are your expectations for this session? Like, what would you like to have happened here when you leave today? When you leave your computer or when you leave this room? Like, what kind of answers would you like to get? Again, try to just be brief. A couple of words. Ideas. Yes. To get connections, to learn, synergies, awareness. Yeah, that's a good one. Networking, updated on projects. Yeah. We're moving into that very shortly. Practical things. I like that one. Like, what can we sort of really practically continue with after we leave here today? Common ground, discover, creating momentum. Yes. We don't want this to just end up with a paper product. I don't know if there is going to be a paper product, but you know what I mean. We want to have action. We want to see something happening after this. Okay. Excellent. And we will collect all your replies and use them for inspiration as we move on working. Okay, thank you very much. I think we will close the Mentimeter now, Johannes. I can't remember if we had another question, but I think we will skip it. Thank you. Now you're on the big screen, Johannes, which is really nice. But I think maybe if we can change to Maria Boyle. Maria, who is a Waterborne colleague of mine, if you can say that. She's employed at the University of Piraeus, and she is going to give us the first presentation on the theme of sustainable infrastructures. And then we have Yvonne Koldenhoff from Marine, who's going to give her presentation. And so I just want to let the speakers know that when there's 1 minute left, I will stand up here again, and you know you have 1 minute left. But with no further ado, I will leave the floor to Maria.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Let me share my screen so you can see my presentation. Can you see the presentation? I take that as a yes. I didn't hear. So the presentation is on this session on port.
We see it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So port, marinas, and logistics, and I'll emphasize on sustainable infrastructures. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate, and I'm really sorry for not being able to be there with you. I'd love to be there. Unfortunately, it was not able. So I'm Maria Boile. I come from the University of Piraeus, Department of Maritime Studies, and I will speak about the work that we do within the context of our activities in the quantitative analysis and shipping laboratory. And I will touch a little bit upon also the waterborne transport activities as they relate to ports and infrastructures. So within the university and our laboratory, we do conduct research, applied research. I heard during the Mentimeter selections that practical solutions, applied stuff was mentioned. I think that my presentation will come close to some of these requests. But before going into the research activities within my institution, I would like to go a little bit deeper into what was presented earlier by David on the research, development, and innovation priorities within the Waterborne Technology Platform, and especially things that are recorded into our strategic research and innovation agenda on ports and logistics. This is the slide that was shown by David already, and you see that within the Zero-Emission Waterborne Transport Partnership, we deal quite a bit with the development of technologies that will assist in improving the environmental footprint and eventually decarbonizing the waterborne transport sector. And of course, we understand, as you see in the last column there, that ports and relevant infrastructures have a very important role to play in this sense. So going a step deeper from this slide, we see a roadmap that is included in our document towards zero-emission ports. So this roadmap is a 10-year roadmap starting in 2021, going all the way to 2031, unfolding these priorities under the port pillars that include bunkering of alternative energy solutions, reducing emissions, and improving climate resiliency. These are the three key priorities and objectives under our ports and logistics set of activities. And you see here listed different priorities of things that need to be done between now and 2031. So at the end of this time frame, we have the technologies in place that will enable us to achieve the zero emission and climate resilient port infrastructure. Several activities can be run in parallel, others are sequential and they build upon each other. We are now already halfway through almost in this timeline, and we are drafting the agenda for topics for 26 and 27 that will help us, let's say, come closer to the targets that we have set for this time frame. Within this context, the tiny pieces of work that we do within my institution in the greening of European seaports timeframe, looking into sustainable infrastructures and examining sustainability from an environmental point of view as well as economic and social. I present three key projects that we have in this under this activity. The first one is Greening of European Seaports, is a study that was tendered by DG Move, and the aim was to look at good practices mainly from Europe, but from all over the world, and see how these can become relevant or applicable to small, very small, and medium-sized ports in Europe. So this study has been completed, and I will very briefly touch upon some of the key findings. Another piece of work that we do within our team has to do with how do we transfer this knowledge and how do we test technologies in a very, very small port infrastructure environment. And I'm referring to port infrastructures in the Aegean Sea related to the Greek islands. So how do we develop infrastructures that are resilient and sustainable at the same time? Taking also into consideration, as you see in the bottom right part of this slide, it's Greek to you, I know. It's a study tendered by our Ministry of Maritime Affairs, and it is looking at the ferry services that are connecting these small ports within the Aegean region. Here are some key elements from the European study on greening of European seaports. And the left-hand side, you see a graphic indicating what are the factors that affect the greening capacity of ports. It's not only the financial capacity of a port and the administrative structure of it, as you see with the red part of this element, but we also need to take into consideration the types and share of activities, meaning the traffic combination and the effect of that, logistics and distribution services, energy facilities, industrial and manufacturing activities inside or nearby the port infrastructures. Geographical location is also very important, like how the port connects with what kind of hinterland is an important element to be considered, and also the cargo and passenger handling capacity of the port and what the mix between different cargoes and different types of passenger traffic are. So this is one of the core elements of the study, like how we approach the factors that affect the greening capacity of ports. On the right-hand side, you see a typology or taxonomy, if you wish, of categories of good practices. And here we have 22 categories, and under each of these, you will find different and several subcategories. So we have this classification, and with that, we go into looking again at how these can be assessed as factors affecting the greening capacity of ports. And one of the elements is scale and complexity of whatever the solution is, whether that is a solution related to a specific technology or business model or any other good practice. The second element is transferability of this technology. The next one is capacity building and how the capacity can be built within the port so that with the human capital and the knowledge available, these practices can be successfully implemented. And of course, financial considerations and the risk aversion, like whether the port is willing to undertake any risks and test more cutting-edge technologies, or if they are looking more mature and well-tested ones. So the report is published and it's available, and you can access it for more details. Another element that became apparent from the other two studies that I mentioned is that we do need detailed data if we are to make good assessments and to better understand the environment, which we try to improve from an environmental but also economic and social point of view. And here you see in the Aegean, what we try to do for our ministry is to bring together different data sources. We have data, but it's in different places, so it's dispersed and not well connected. So we couldn't put things together within using a systemic approach. So we built that database for the ministry. We saw how we can make sense out of all this interesting data and information that were available, and to build some knowledge out of it and also support their decision making. Of course, it became apparent soon that in addition to whatever data we are collecting, we need real-time information as well. And we find out that in several of the facilities that are under the monitoring and planning activity of the ministry, there are such data, and we try to show from, in addition to the green side that I just showed, how from the digital side this data can become together under this integrated framework. We use different types of technology, most of which is available within our laboratory to collect data, in addition to putting sensors into the infrastructures and try to monitor real-time activity. We sent a crew out in the field to try and collect data with our aerial and surface and underwater equipment and apparatus that we have. In this dimension and direction, there are two projects that helped us quite a bit to advance our models and methods. One is the EMERA project that you see listed on the left-hand side. And the priority of this project is to build an environmental risk assessment methodology that is fed again from data, either satellite data or data that we collect with drones or sensors that we have in the field. And the idea is to try and use these means to monitor any activity that can potentially lead to pollution in a port environment. And on the right-hand side, you see a project. It's called SMAUG. And the mission of the project is to improve and enhance the security of ports and their entrance routes, utilizing AI and technologies for monitoring, again, through surface means, underwater and aerial means, the area around the port. So we built upon these technologies and the experience from the projects and the model developed to propose to our ministry an approach that will help them map the infrastructures that we have all over the Aegean, small ports, infrastructures, and other critical infrastructure for the islands, and develop 3D models mapping both the above water as well as the underwater infrastructure. So in a sense, laying the grounds for building eventually a digital twin of these small infrastructures. So the first one is to have this 3D mapping. And then on this 3D mapping, we overlay models that do prediction of the condition of the infrastructure, the aging model and projections of these infrastructures, as well as activity, which is currently monitored in these infrastructures, but also projections of the future. And that helps us put extra elements on that 3D imaging that have to do with the optimization of the assets, the infrastructures. Integrating into that risk assessment models also helps the decision making, and this is what we do as part of our research activity on this front, with the idea to support the monitoring and planning of infrastructure updates in the islands. We're speaking here about very small and small ports scattered all over the Aegean Sea. They present special types of issues, being very small, not having on site the capacity that is required in terms of planners, engineers, and so on, not having a very clear smart specialization agenda tailored to the environment of each island. And each island, I mean, we say the Aegean Islands, but each of them is so different. So we need to specialize this, this plan. The infrastructures are outdated, investments and capacity for investing is very limited. So these types of tools become really strategic for the Aegean Sea.
Maria, your time is almost up.
And this is my
I can
last
ask you to
slide.
wrap up.
This is my last slide. Thank you,
Excellent.
Jessica. That brings all these technologies together into a visual that shows how we can go about around this cycle to build the safety and security, maintenance, risk assessment, and resiliency of our infrastructures. And with that, I conclude the presentation. Thank you very much.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you. So I want to ask the next presenter to get prepared, Yvonne Koldenhoff from Marine. And after her presentation, we will have a brief possibility for questions to both speakers.
Yes, so can you see my slides? And you can all hear me also?
Yes, we hear you fine and we see your slides.
Oh, thanks. So everything works. That's fine. So my name is Yvonne Koldenhoff. I work at Marin. I will briefly introduce Marin later on, and I will take you from the sunny Rome, which unfortunately I was not able to attend the workshop in person, but I will take you from the sunny Rome to the kind of windy North Sea. Because we've been doing a lot of research on what's happening on the North Sea and all the developments. As maybe some of you know what's been going on there, or otherwise I will take you through it. And we see a lot of challenges on the North Sea, and we have at Marin an approach to help at least authorities also in making some kind of decision. So I will try to briefly take you through our approach and our ideas, and then in the end I will come up with some. Oh, this is the next. Yes. So I will briefly take you with one of our solutions. So we do a lot of research at Marin, but this is one of the things looking into the impact for and also by shipping. So it's a two-way street. And in the end, ours is more an integration solution. That would be at least our approach, but that's the buzzword for today. I understand already. So so briefly, a short introduction on Marin. So Marin is a maritime research institute in the Netherlands. I just put some. Give it aside some pictures of what we are doing. So we do a lot of research around the ships. That's what we originally initiated on. So doing improving hydrodynamics and performance of vessels. But a vessel is not only built to look nice or work properly. It's meant to transport things and persons from A to B. So our research is also extended, and we are looking into how shipping actually works. So we have a bridge simulator where you can train persons. We have water basins where they actually can test it on model scale, but we also do like full scale measurements. So this is what we try to do. We are an independent research institute, so we do some commercial work, but that's more our profits goes back into doing research. So not non-governmental, so we are independent. And our main mission is to make clean, smart, and safe shipping and sustainable use of the sea. So that's actually one of the things we are discussing today. If you want to know more, please contact me or look at our website, but maybe some of you are already familiar with it. So challenges on the North Sea. So I will take you to the North Sea. I'm aware that the session is called Ports, Marinas and Logistics. So that's maybe a smaller area than the North Sea. But if we take a look to all the developments that are going on the North Sea, you could maybe argue that in a couple of years, decades, the whole North Sea will be like a kind of inland water area with a lot of infrastructure. But why is it a challenging puzzle? Well, I think it's not a surprise for all of you, but it's the same in other sea areas also. First of all, it's a large nature area. When I try to find pictures to go with presentations, I found a kind of puzzle. And it's a Dutch puzzle. It's actually stating all kind of nature things from the North Sea, but it's actually stated that it's the smallest puzzle on the North Sea. Well, but it's becoming the most challenging one, I think. So there's a lot of nature. There's also a lot of shipping activities, and as you're all aware of, that shipping activities are also changing. So vessels are getting bigger. In some areas you see an increase of the number of vessels, but there's also a lot of things changing in shipping. It's already mentioned that we are going to alternative propulsion systems, so that could increase or decrease the risk, but also autonomy shipping is one of the things that's been going on. And next to that, so there's a lot of things going on in shipping itself, but there's also a lot of things going on in the sea itself. So there's a lot of offshore developments and offshore activities also. Well, the already existing ones are like dredging, but also collection of sand and shells. So taking all this into account, you need really marine spatial planning. I think that's also a little bit the key word what I was trying to say. And those offshore developments, that's what makes it even more challenging, are increasing. So I'm just going to take you a little bit also why it is the North Sea. I'm going to take you to the North Sea. The previous speaker also talked about analyzing a lot of data. Well, that's also what we are doing. This provides just density maps of some main traffic routes on the North Sea. Here in the middle, I'm not sure if you can see my arrow, but you can see the Rotterdam area and the main shipping routes. And we use like AIS data. So that's data from ships. They say where they are and where they are sailing. So we analyze that, and we provide input for marine spatial planning and just to say how much vessels are sailing there. So you could say that it's like 80 vessels per day sailing each direction only on our Dutch waters. But why is that challenging? Well, here you can see a small picture of where you can, the lines, like the spaghetti kind of lines, are the tracks from vessels, and the indicated areas are planned wind farm areas. So you can see that there's a challenge in finding the correct routes, because they are now going through areas where they are planning wind farms. So the implication on shipping are large if you want to build wind farms. So that's just to give an idea of the challenges. Well, I think this is also mentioned, but if we are increasing our activities at sea, and we are doing other things at sea. So it's not only sailing anymore or fixed wind parks, or there's a lot of activities going on sea. It will impact. It will increase the impact for, but also by shipping. So it's a two-way street. And you can maybe make a separation in between a continuous effect. So that's something that's already also mentioned, like emissions. You can see here in the bottom, this is something we do every year, where we connect the exhaustion of or the emissions of certain gases to the AIS data. So you have a picture of where it's actually emitted. And the top, you can see that some results from an EU project we were contributing is not only emissions to the air, but also on the water and on the water radiated noise. So that's really a continuous impact for and by shipping. But the other one is maybe even, it's sometimes a little bit forgotten maybe, but there's also an incidentally impact. So from different accidents. So here you can see some examples. The top one is what's the Fremantle Highway. It was like a car carrier that caught fire and it burned for a couple of days, but there are also container loss, or you can think of if two vessels collide, they can have an accidental spill, which can have a potential impact on marine life. So even though it's not a continuously impact, it is something I think should be taken into account if we look into the integrated picture. So how are we doing this? So this is just one of our examples. I already showed you some results we do based on data analysis. So by connecting a lot of data, not only from shipping, but also to models for the the underwater noise, but also the emissions. Or so if you connect all the dots, you can have a nice picture of how the sea and the ships and the risks are now. But it's not only necessary to look at how the situation is now, you also need to look a little bit into the future. So that's why Maren, together with the Ministry of Infrastructure, developed a model that's called Samson. I think it's developed over 30 years ago, and it's called Safety Assessment Model for Shipping and Offshore on the North Sea. So it's initially built to really create a picture of how many accidents we expect. So say something on the safety of shipping. But if you know something on the number of accidents, then you can connect that also with consequences. So in the top, you can see it's a very, it's like the system diagram of the model. You need to collect everything you know about the system you are looking into. So the maritime traffic system, then we have some frequency models that really look into the number of accidents. But the important thing is also for me the consequence part. So what happens if certain accidents occur? And the nice thing of the model is that it can represent the present, but also the future situation. So for example, the situation with all the wind farms, so we can make a picture of how the traffic is looking now in the North Sea, to connect it to also the emissions and the underwater noise, but also the number of expected collisions and outflow of oil and everything. So we can take a picture of now. But we can also adjust the routes, implement new fixed objects, or so we can change the system and use the same models again and have a new risk picture. So you can really see the impact of certain developments also. And that's so that's basically model. I can talk for this model for hours if you want, so I can't go into all the details, but if you also want to know more, please be in contact. And I think this could be one of the type of models that really could connect also all the different individual and more in-depth research that's going on. So I just gave some examples because I didn't know how much time I would have, so I can do this quickly or take some more time. But here you can see some examples of the outcome of that model. Here you can see on the left, there's a lot of dots with blue to red colors that are proposed locations for offshore wind turbines. And the color is indicating the probability that vessels will collide with a wind farm. The probability is small, but it still can happen, and we are still not sure what actually will happen to the vessel if you collide with a fixed object. So the consequence part is still a little bit unknown. So for that, for now, it is the goal to prevent it in the first place, but you can actually see where the higher and lower areas are. And the figure on the right is a combination with also in the cells, you can see the possible ship-ship collisions. And in the middle, you could see what I was trying to explain, that you can also compare different scenarios, saying, okay, I'm going to build wind farms here, or I'm going to build wind farms there, or I can take some measures, and then you can see, compare the results of the two scenarios and see what the actual effect is. So this is research that's been done the past years, and I found some relatively old pictures, but this is also to show something on the consequence part. We are actually now in the process of updating these types of studies, so I don't have the new results, but here you can see if you connect it to the number of persons on board, so you have the impact of persons, and in the middle you see this was something we did on the expected outflow of oil. I see that you are already there, but I'm at my last slide. So this is a little bit my the conclusion or my call. I think if we want to solve like marine spatial planning or the challenges on the different seas areas, we need an integrated approach. We cannot only look at ecological impacts or shipping impacts, because it's all connected. But I think we all agree on that. So the challenges on the North Sea and any sea become bigger. The impact also becomes larger, and not only continually, but also incidentally. So marine spatial planning, in my opinion, will be increasingly important, and we need an integrated approach, and using like a model, Samson, or the knowledge from a marine is, I think, could be one of the things to connect it. So these are my contact information. If you want to know more, please please look for contact, and I was happy to share this. If there are questions, just...
Okay, we will ask you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Thank you very much. We'll give her an applause as well. Excellent. So I think we're all aware we're running a little bit behind, but we do have an hour for lunch. So I think we will manage to catch up during lunch, if nothing else. And I will give you 5 minutes to stretch your legs halfway through this session. But right now, I want to see if there are any questions for Maria or Yvonne. Or thoughts. It could be reflections. It doesn't have to be specific questions, I suppose. No? Okay, one reflection that I had is, well, I was thinking, Yvonne, you now talked about marine spatial planning, which is the third theme of this session. So we'll return to that, which I think is interesting, because that is something that in sort of in the spatial realm actually connects different activities. But I also think it's interesting to see, if we look at marine spatial planning, how do we then connect the conditions for different types of companies to operate in that spatial realm, and the conditions for the environment. That's to me different layers that we need to add to marine spatial planning. So that is something I personally think a bit about, and it would be interesting to see how we could get these layers sort of connected to each other, because marine spatial planning doesn't solve everything. Just because we point out we're going to have offshore wind here doesn't mean we know how it affects the environment. Or vice versa. So I think this is something that could be interesting to look more into. Yes, please, Margareta. Oh.
No, thank you for the presentation and for the input, in particular on maritime spatial planning, because we are facing this issue. We have our communities, and in particular, I would say from the Black Sea, pushing for keeping this as a priority area, but actually we have not very good response by the research community to our calls on that topic. So I'm wondering whether your input and the presentation we just heard could give us some hints or where to focus more, how to be more attractive. That's just a comment, but
yeah, excellent. Anyone wants to continue on that comment? No, we'll have Benjamin. Yes.
Good morning, Benjamin Curtin, my name. When it comes to the marine spatial planning, we have seen that the offshore development and traffic and the approaches to the harbors and ports are considered, and the offshore wind farm placements and so on and so forth. But I think a key ingredient towards a good marine spatial planning is also the valorization of the ecosystems that are potentially impacted. So, and that could be then going into the module of the one of the components, the ecosystem impact module that was described in the Samsung. I think there is a very, very good connectivity between the two groups here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. And I know there will be more discussions about that. And to just add on to what you just said there, Benjamin, I think you both, Maria and Yvonne, mentioned data a lot. And that's like one of the layers somehow, like, yeah. So I think when we talk about the spatial layer, we need to add data layers and all kinds of layers. And how we do that, that's a challenge for all of us, I think. Okay, so I want to move on to the next theme now. And that's the theme, very suitable, digital twins, digitalization and logistics. And I have seen our next presenter online, Sotiris Theophanis from City College, University of York, the Europe campus, which is apparently in Thessaloniki, who will be speaking to us first in the second theme. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Let me share my screen first. See that.
Yes, we don't see your presentation yet.
Yep.
Yep.
I do have a problem in sharing my screen, but I hope that I will resolve it. Okay, share screen.
You did share screen, but we see the Teams ourselves.
Okay, yep. Let me see whether, do you see?
Yes,
the
there it is. Yep. It's
Great.
not in presentation mode, but we see your presentation. Yep.
It's in a minute. Okay. So now you see the
Perfect.
whole thing. Well, when I have been invited for this presentation, I had a dilemma whether to show you some of the use cases that I have encountered on my own or my colleagues' activity, or to go to something more strategic, and trying actually to merge my personal experience, both from the industry. I have been in the past twice president CEO of the Port of Thessaloniki and president and CEO of the Port of Piraeus, or to, and in that case, trying actually to see what are some strategic dilemmas regarding the deployment of smart technologies in ports, and what are the prospects ahead and the associated challenges. So I opted for the second, the second option, and I will try in very brief, to present some of my encounters and of my strategic viewpoint, and also to put some question marks to all of us. So what are the classes of smart port technologies? Not only digital twins, we'll talk in a minute. For me, there are actually 6 classes of smart technologies in ports, extending also to the logistics industry in general. First of all, there are technologies enhancing what we call educated decision-making. And these are machine learning and, in broader context, artificial intelligence and what we call recently deep learning. It's the Internet of Things and the way we are using collected data and digital twins, to mention a few. Second, there are technologies and platforms ensuring seamless communication along the transport chain and players' collaboration. For instance, a very important thing is the use of blockchain for transactions, what we call the distributed ledger technology, the DLT. The third is technologies dealing with physical process automation, like the autonomous vehicles and the automated terminal equipment. The fourth has to do with technologies addressing energy management and sustainability. And this is very important too. The fifth, which is an issue all over the world actually now, is technologies addressing cybersecurity risks and threats, and taking into account the cases that we have encountered recently. This is one of the most important issues. And the last but not least, it's a combination of all the above. For instance, you can use artificial intelligence in decision-making in automated container terminals, which is the case of many, many instances very recently, the last 3 up to 5 years. All of them can go to what we call, taking the term from the Industry 4 to the Port 4, which is the terminal and port ecosystem incorporating in a seamless way these technologies. Now, what are the real challenges and decision-making dilemmas we have encountered in our industry, and which we try to address irrespective of being port managers or port industry persons, or being researchers trying to address these dilemma, assisting actually real-life application of the technologies. The first thing is the role of stakeholders' engagement. The port community, and beyond even that of the port community. And whether the ports can work as a single source of info in a kind of digital modes. This presupposes that we have commitment to share their data and transparency, which is not always the case. There are many, many cases where data availability is not provided, and where actually it's not a matter of technology, but it's a matter of commitment of the stakeholders to get in such a project. The second has to do with the limitations of technology against physical large-scale supply chain disruptions. And the big example of that is what happened during COVID-19, where actually every one of us who is active in the shipping and the transport industry knows that we had a very, very peculiar kind of bullwhip effect, a kind of actually having the disruptions in the chain pushed along the chain, irrespective of being port congestion or landside congestion, or disruption stemming from the practices of shipping lines. And there, the technology could not actually address. It could improve things in certain areas, but couldn't actually address the issues along the chain. The third is the challenge of data collection. We have a huge amount of unstructured data handling through sensors, actuators, or mobile technology that need to be exploited in a streamlined way. The fourth thing, which is really a challenge, we have encountered that in another issue, the issue of sustainability in this study that Dr. Boyle has mentioned earlier, is the scale effect of applying new technologies in the port sector. Is too small suitable for that, both in terms of initial investment as well as in terms of maintaining the equipment you need to gather, to collect the data that you need. In most cases, this presents a very, very serious challenge, not only to small ports, but even to medium-sized ports. And it's a similar issue with the issue, for instance, of trying to produce green hydrogen in a small, medium-sized port. The other important thing is how you approach in a port entity the development and application of new technologies. You use startups, you are doing in-house development, or you use established vendors. And even in the case that you use established vendors, how technology can fit for purpose in certain circumstances of a certain port. Because one size fits all, as you know, in the port industry, does not exist. The next challenge really is cybersecurity. And here again, we have an issue of answering the question whether there is one fits all approach for cyber attacks. And again, an issue is that sometimes the investment required to assure that things are getting well regarding cybersecurity is quite high, and nobody knows, based on the very, very, how can I say, very, very rigorous way that cyber attacks are coming in place, whether actually investing yesterday can provide you risk security tomorrow. Another important issue is the issue of qualified personnel, and here is where the role of training takes a very, very important place. The old generation of personnel in ports is quite difficult to be trained. On the other side, we have the new generation personnel, which needs to get a very, very sound insight on the changing patterns of port operations and even wider logistics operation in order to exploit well the technology that they are actually literate to. Another important issue is the challenge of investment and operational cost. I touched upon that earlier when speaking about the medium and small size port, but in operational cost and investment is a very, very important thing, and can be actually combined with the next point, the limited life cycle of digital twin and in general digitalization equipment. And this is something that really And the limited life cycle does not have only to do with the cycle of the asset per se, the life cycle of the asset per se, but also with the new technologies that come up very, very shortly. In a life not exceeding 5 to 7 years, you may have the whole technology to be redundant. Now, let's go to the digital twins. And with this one, I will actually finalize my presentation. And I'm more than happy to discuss any issues that may arise from this. A first issue with the digital twins is how we define digital twins. Is it, and this is not something that has to do only with the port industry, it has to do with all industrial or service sectors where they try to apply this technology. Is digital twin simply an asset replica, or it is more? And what is the expectation out of this application of digital twins? Is it based on the classification we gave earlier? Is this a way actually of taking educated decision making or taking accurate decision making based on the fact that this is something which is live, more or less live, depending on the features of the twin? The second thing is to understand the fundamental difference between simulation and digital twin. Simulation is a simulated picture of the reality where we use two things: historical data and severe assumptions in order to simulate the situation. Now, with the role of the big data, we have the case of the real-time responsiveness, where at least in principle, and again, there are many different ways of applying digital twins, and I think that the colleague from Rotterdam Port, which will go after me, will analyze that, since the Port of Rotterdam is actually the pioneer in Europe in applying digital twins. But the important thing is that we have to fulfill a cycle, the cycle of analyzing data, of diagnosing, of classifying, of learning and deciding. And this
Dr. Theophanis, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up now, please.
Yeah, I'm finishing in a minute. The next point is the scope of application. And here we have, again, a very, very wide spectrum, from actually monitoring the development of a green port, or of a green application, of a green field development, of a new port, up to twinning actually a control center in an automated container terminal. And last but not least, and I finalize my presentation with that, is how far we can go. What is the next step? And what is actually the vision of the port as a nervous system actually along the supply chain?
Thank you.
The last thing,
I think we're going to have to wrap up there to keep on time. But thank you very much for your presentation. We'll give him an applause.
Thank you.
So I think you also made a very nice leave over to our next speaker, who is Douwe van der Stroom from Port of Rotterdam, that you mentioned. And he's also joining us online. So I give the floor to our next speaker.
Yes, good morning. Ciao a tutti. My name is Douwe van der Stroom. I work at the Port of Rotterdam. And I lead a team focusing on the way that we apply digital to the port ecosystem, so the industrial cluster and also the logistics. So just to, let me see if this presentation is moving. There we go. Just to give you an insight, we are the largest port in Europe. We land or welcome over 30,000 seagoing vessels and 107,000 inland vessels. Large logistics hub, therefore. But we also have a very large industrial cluster, like I said, with over 5 crude oil refineries, some of the largest in Europe as well. And being the Port of Rotterdam, we therefore supply almost 13% of European energy demand. So that's something that is not to underestimate, but also when it comes into strategic autonomy in the current geopolitical environment. So it's always good to emphasize, what does the Port of Rotterdam Authority do? We follow a landlord model. So on one hand, we, like I said, work on the terrain and infrastructure for the industrial cluster and logistics there, but we also play a role in the transport. And I think sort of linking on to what the professor said, digital is applied on both ends. So we are working on digital in the logistics space, but also within the industrial and energy sort of heavy industry sector. The energy transition, the energy and raw materials transition is a key focus and strategic point for us as the port. We have over 70 projects, as you can see here, throughout the entire port. I'll highlight just one or two because I don't want to bore you with all of them. But maybe a significant one is the Portals project. That is a carbon capture and storage project that we have in the Port of Rotterdam, helping the industry capturing their CO2 and storing it into empty gas fields here outside of the North Sea, just outside of the port. Very large project, and it's interesting to see how the Port of Rotterdam has played a crucial role in getting multiple players around the table to get this off the ground. Another key project I would like to highlight is a project we do with Shell under the name of Holland Hydrogen 1. That is a hydrogen production site, a conversion park with large-scale electrolysis, a 200 megawatt capacity. And I didn't want to only show artist impressions. As you can see here on the left, we're also actually building. So you can see the construction site here on the right as well. Because I think in this current energy transition climate, it's also good to show that we get off the PowerPoint and we get onto the shovel and to the ground. However, today, obviously, we wanted to zoom in a little bit on digital. And I think over the last few years, we've seen that digital can play a crucial role in accelerating the energy and raw materials transition. We sometimes like to call it a twin transition, or well, it goes in line with sort of the digital twinning that is expected. And some say that digital solutions can help reduce global emissions by up to 20%. So that's why we've really picked up that role when it comes to data and digital projects. We see 3 sort of different areas, and I think it is in line very much with what the professor said. So we work on how can we create better efficiency. We work on better decision making as a Port of Rotterdam Authority, but we also allow through data and digital means to develop new business models, right? So you can think of marketplaces or sharing economy that you can set up. And there's a lot to gain. If we look into the logistics space, there's a few facts here that just goes to show that there's still huge inefficiency in ports. You can see that over 50% of shipping experience delays. There's huge potential of saving in the maritime sector when it comes to emission. And if we look into just in time, there's quite a lot of potential there as well. And when it comes to model split, for example, around trucks, there's still a lot you can do also to well, highly utilize your cargo. Just to highlight a project that we've done to start with, I would suppose the element of better decision making. We set up a harbor emission service platform. This really gives insight into the emissions, CO2, NOx, of shipping, so we can exactly monitor the emissions of our different ships using AIS and other data points to come to an estimate. We've actually worked a lot with that with our Dutch National Research Institute, TNO, to set up this model. And it's also European standard verified, so we can really help use this to benchmark, and it's also being applied in different European ports. Other than that, the Port of Rotterdam, we are not so much a software company, right? But we have kickstarted a few projects. Companies like LexLogic or Root Scanner have been spin-offs of developments that we've seen in the Port of Rotterdam. And I would highly suggest having a look into their services when it comes to applying digital to the port. Worth mentioning, I won't zoom into it now, but there's a lot that we do also on the smart infra side. So when we build quay walls or the different boulders, there's quite some interest there in digitizing some of that asset management. But my team specifically is looking into applying digital data and digital to the energy sector, and specifically to the harbor industrial cluster. And this picture shows you a little bit of what we do here. And I would like to highlight this one project that we call Starlings. Not the Starlink by Elon Musk. This is the Starlings that are birds that fly in synergy. And what we see and what we hope to do here is to synergize or create synergies between the different sectors and between the different companies in our port. Because we often find that these companies are operating within their own battery limits, optimizing their own production. But we find that there's a lot to gain as soon as you look across different company borders. And as port and as landlord, we can really play a role in looking over that sort of collective. And working jointly to get these projects off the ground. I just want to show you a little bit about this Starlings trial. We zoom into a specific area which we call the bottleneck. And this year and last year, we have started with doing a sort of virtual, close to reality game in which we allow these different companies that have a lot of gas, electricity, and hydrogen going through their companies to see how can we optimize your different utilities between these different clusters. These are very large chemical companies, so very different from maybe some households in which you do some smart energy management. But here we really see that large-scale production and how can we see the huge potential of collaboration. Very interesting project, and we believe that through this collective optimization, we can reach 2 to 5% of energy cost savings. And so this is a great example for many different industrial clusters across the world, I would say, to optimize their energy consumption and production, not just on electricity, but also in relation to steam, for example, or natural gas. Just to show you a bit of an example, this project we do in a joint initiative with Yokogawa, well known as an industrial automator, so doing a lot of the process optimization and automation in plants. And as you can see here, is a bit of an insight onto, obviously there's quite some competitive information sometimes between these different companies, so trust and security, I think some of the dilemmas that were mentioned by the professor as well, are key in this project. But what we've done is some modeling of these different companies and their different energy topologies. And by using their production schedule, we align their schedules to see how we can optimize. And as a result, we communicate aggregated insights to the different participating companies. And hopefully, after this virtual trial, we can move into actual implementation. But you can imagine that a lot of companies are a little bit hesitant at first to participate in this. So we've had to play a role in building that trust. And I believe that through showing value, we can scale this to a next level. A really great example of how data and digital can help in the optimization and also help reducing costs and emissions. I think that's it from my side. I didn't want to take up too much time and stick to the 15 minutes and leave some room for some questions if need be.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I open up the floor for questions to both our speakers on this theme and online as well, of course.
I just would like to ask to the previous speaker, sorry, I cannot pronounce his name, whether he believes that the port authorities are would be keen to share their data in a small pilot action.
Was that a question for the first or second speaker?
The first.
Okay, so
But both.
Dr.
I would say both, but I
Okay.
took it from
Sure.
his presentation.
Yeah,
So-
Dr. Theophanis, I think it's first for you.
Yes, thank you. There is no one unique answer to that. It depends on the case. It depends on the added value that the Port Authority considers out of sharing data. And even at that was my last transparency, last slide that I haven't presented. Even global terminal operators, they do have difficulties in sharing their data between them, apart from certain cases. So there is an answer that nobody knows. It depends on the case.
Okay, thank you. So, Van der Stroom, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, sure. And no worries, it's quite a difficult Dutch name, not a problem. No, I think it's key. It is like I said, the trust aspect is a very important one. I think what we've seen in data collaboration and data sharing is that if the benefits are high enough, that a lot of companies are willing to work along where possible. So I think you always have to start small, create a pilot atmosphere with some front runners, and by that show value in which companies can then collaborate. I think the technology allows for a lot of the data security already. So technologically, it can be done, but it's more a matter of trust between the different parties that I think is key here.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience online? Right now, I don't think. Yeah, so a reflection for me is that we're coming back to data, right? We heard about data also in the first session. So let's see if there's any presentation today that will not mention data. We'll see. I was also thinking of what I call land-sea interactions. So both from this theme that we just heard, but also from the first theme. So I think often a lot of the legislation that we have, and I mean, when I say we, I mean Europe, it sort of ends at the coastal zone. So either it deals with land or it deals with ocean, and then we have some means of dealing with the in-betweens. But I think this is a really important part of the blue economy, managing this interaction with the coast and with inland, and not the least, we heard it in relation to ports and logistics. So I think personally this could be really interesting in looking at further. Ports in different types of roles, but also coastal communities in general. You both mentioned here stakeholder engagement, which I think is also interesting. So to me, that's another layer that we need to add. Okay, so I thank you for this theme and interesting presentations. Now I'm just going to find the right paper. I think right now we will have a 5-minute break. So let me just look at the clock. So why don't we at 11:35, it's more than 5 minutes, but I think maybe we need it. So 11:35, we reconvene here. Thank you. Okay. Saturn?
Sì, è quello qua,
Ok.
è il stesso nome.
Ok. Copia.
No,
No,
the
no.
one after.
Okay.
Yes. Ok, incolla. Sì. Grazie mille.
Okay. So now, where is
Ah sì, per la chiave?
Oh, la chiave? Sì.
Sì, facciamo. Ok.
Questo. Oh, questo.
Grazie.
Okay.
You can just stay out here. Oh yeah?
Yeah, I think it's nicer.
Jessica.
You're Andrea. Nice to meet you. Please, and please, yeah, or just stand here or sit here, and I will just kick off the session. Yeah. Yes.
The next session, we come here and see.
Yes, I will ask you to come on after these two presentations, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, everyone, welcome back. I hope those of you participating online had time to grab a coffee. So we are going to move on. I will ask Andrea and Thomas to come up here, please, and join me up on stage. So we're moving on with the next topic or next theme in this session on port, marinas and logistics. And our first speaker is Andrea Barbanti from National Research Council of Italy, Institute of Marine Science. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you to the, let's see if I'm able to, okay. I have to first, qualcuno sta maneggiando per me, vedo. Okay. So good morning again, and thank you for the invitation. Andrea Barbanti from CNR ISMAR. Briefly introducing myself, I'm working on maritime spatial planning. This was topic that was mentioned several times in the previous interventions. And I had the pleasure to work in the last 10 years, more or less, on MSP in different EU projects, and also to collaborate with the Italian competent authorities on MSP to elaborate, to prepare the Italian MSP plans recently approved. Okay, today we'll elaborate a bit on the contribution of MSP to sustainable maritime transport, maybe feeding the discussion and helping to identify new trajectories, new research teams to promote, thanks to the joint work of the two partnerships. My presentation, you see here the outline of it. I will briefly introduce basically MSP and the state of play of MSP. Then I will enter the specific topic of the connection of MSP with maritime transport and ports with some, let's say, generalities and some examples, trying to make it more concrete. And then I would like to conclude, leaving to the discussion some messages on potential challenges and options to use MSP to promote sustainable maritime transport. First of all, why MSP? Well, I'm using statement from the communication, the Sustainable Blue Economy communication of the Commission, that briefly says that the greater the demand for use of maritime space, the more crucial is to have maritime spatial planning. This is how maritime spatial planning started and how it's growing and how it is implemented. Providing a number of, let's say, added values to the process, like strategic thinking, raising awareness within the whole marine and maritime community, helping the harmonization, the coherent process among different marine and maritime policies, which is really a key issue. Of course, trying to avoid the overexploitation of marine resources, promote innovative sea uses, and also reduce administrative burdens. So these are all the reasons for let's say, using MSP. The state of play, well, most of the 22 coastal member states of Europe have now adopted their plans according to the MSP directive that was approved in 2014, with the exception of Greece and Croatia for their exclusive economic zone area. The processes there are ongoing. At the same time, there are several countries that are in a second or even the third cycle of, let's say, adapting their plans. And there is an ongoing second evaluation of the implementation from the Commission, DG Mare. This is expected to be ready to be delivered March 2026. At the same time, there are several transboundary initiatives that are promoting or are linked to MSP, like regional sea conventions, UNESCO IOC MSP Global, sea basing initiatives or strategies like USER or WestMed or the Great North Sea initiatives. There are communities of practice, very active, established and very active on MSP and the blue economy around MSP or within MSP, if you want, like the one in the Med or in the North Sea and the Baltic, which has a long tradition on MSP, as you may know. And at the same time, there are several projects feeding the MSP process from different perspectives. And from different programs, Horizon Europe, but EMAF, Interreg, or even the strategic, the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership that has a specific intervention area on this. So the process is very well launched, is ongoing, plans are in place right now. But there are still a number of issues that needs to be tackled, that are being tackled to promote overall a more coherent approach to MSP throughout Europe. And I listed some of them here, actually taken from a recent review that was published on marine policy a few months ago. There are differences in the national arrangements on MSP, the legal effects of the plans. There is a wide variety of legal effects of the plans, the way countries designate areas, they manage their space, in fact, the drivers, specific sectors or drivers that are behind the plans that may change depending on the area and the country interests, indeed. The application of the ecosystem-based approach, which is a key issue in MSP, or another key issue, how you manage, how you tackle, how you use and consider in MSP land-sea interactions, the wide variety of land-sea interactions. And we are here also discussing about ports. So this is an example of a very important land-sea interaction. A single slide actually on the MSP in Italy. We just approved September 2024, the 3 Italian plans, Tyrrhenian Sea, Ionian Sea and Adriatic Sea. And it was a long journey, very difficult, but this is, as I always say, it's the end of a phase, but is the start of a new phase of the journey. And I really hope that the plan is now adaptively monitored and managed to sustain sustainable blue economy development in our country and in the, of course, neighboring countries. It's a strategic plan, but it's legally binding. So it's not a guideline, let's say, and it uses a multi-scalar planning approach. You see the sub-areas and the planning units. What the plan does is not to assign areas to specific uses, but to identify vocations according to declared objectives and let's say medium long-term vision for the different areas to help the different areas and the different sectors to evolve in a coherent, harmonized, and ecologically sustainable way. The perspectives of MSP beyond Italy, I listed here a number of, let's say, key topics, hot topics. Monitoring and adaptations of the national plan is ongoing, it's critical, and then the countries act in a different way according to their tradition, their culture, their interests. And there is a strong, let's say, role that the DG Mare is playing to help in the coordination among the countries through the process. There are a number of challenges that are also key drivers of the process, like the obligation from the Green Deal, if we will have a Green Deal still. Offshore renewable energy, of course, is a key driver in all sea basin, the Med also. Biodiversity strategy, the objectives, 30% protected areas, 10% strictly protected. Climate change in MSP. This is a frontier, is a challenge, how MSP can act to mitigate climate change effects and to adapt to mitigate to climate change effects. And there is all the social or socio-economic dimension that is crucial, poorly, let's say, tackled in current plans, that is becoming more and more, again, a challenge and something to further develop and include into the plans. 4 minutes left. Okay, so I will go really fast. I hope you will have the slides. Transport in MSP. Well, spatial designations or provisions on maritime transport are always present in the MSP plans, but maritime transport is mostly giving boundary conditions to MSP more than being planned through MSP for a number of reasons. To me, there are 3 main reasons. First of all, zones, rules, and related zoning on maritime transport are already well established. So you don't need MSP to plan maritime transport. In this case, it's a strong sector, and there is a tendency of strong sectors not to be, let's say, very willing to play the MSP game. And the strong transnational nature and international governance of the maritime transport. And since MSP, I mean, it's implemented at national scale, this type of international dimension may become a kind of limiting factor. Nevertheless, as I said, maritime transport is fully included in the MSP plans of the different countries, and there are several examples you can identify to see how MSP is taking into account the maritime transport. For example, the adoption of area-based management tool measures, and there are 2 examples here of the PSSA recently established in the northwestern Mediterranean and the older Bonifacio Strait PSSA, or more specific area-based management tool measures providing limitation in maritime transport around or in marine protected areas, redefining corridors TSS or anchoring or areas or ship transit. And I want to mention also another example of connection that is related to underwater noise generated by shipping. I leave then to Thomas to further elaborate in more detail on this aspect. We recently analyzed through a meta-analysis of MSP plants in 11 countries how underwater radiated noise is considered in current MSP plans, and we, in brief, identified that URN is considered in all plans or in most plans, but not properly addressed in all typical MSP phases. There is the plans contain voluntary measures more than legally binding measures on, let's say, maritime transport to reduce underwater radiated noise, but there is a general growing tendency to consider more this aspect in future MSP in connection with other policies. Italy is fully considering maritime transport, identifying priority areas where maritime transport is key. So this type of priority is addressing other uses that use the same areas. And I would like to briefly, if I have 30 seconds, 1 minute, Jessica. I know you're very strict and you're right. It's my fault, half a minute. This is a list of actions or challenges that I identify. Reduce impacts of maritime transport on marine ecosystems. This can be done through MSP. Different types of impacts can be addressed. The introduction, the consideration in MSP of area-based management measures coordinated with the Marine Strategy Directive. There are solutions to reduce and manage conflicts, and this was mentioned before, lengthy interactions, solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and mitigate climate change, adapting port infrastructures to future maritime climate scenarios, tools to support decision-making and policy-making, like decision support tools or DTOs. This is very important, and MSP very much needs this type of tools to inform, evolve, and adapt MSP plans. And then to, let's say, possible actions, challenges related to the social dimension of the process that was not very much considered, mentioned, but this is crucial. And MSP, again, can be a very good opportunity to convey the visions from the communities, local and non-local community, including the maritime transport. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to be strict so that we can have lunch together. Oops, now I touched something, sorry. Okay, I'll keep my fingers off that. So next we're gonna hear from a project by Thomas Folgott, sorry, pronouncing it right.
Here. Okay. Yep. Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for inviting me today. I'm very glad to be here. My name is Thomas Folgott. I work for Quiet Oceans, which is a company based in Brest, in France. And I'm going to talk about Ocean Planner, which is a decision aid platform, mainly focused on underwater noise, but not only, and which turned out to be a marine spatial planning tool.
And I'm going to explain that with more details. So the way these, okay, yeah, how did that start? When I was going to conferences, to workshops, to meetings, we had always the same question coming from stakeholders. And these two questions were, well, from the industry saying that, well, you know, if you start to regulate the ocean and our activities, we're going to shut down, you're going to kill our business. And from the governments, it was more like, okay, we would like to regulate, but we don't have the numbers for underwater noise on how efficient is it going to be to regulate the sea and to reduce the noise and the risk related to underwater noise. So then that was the starting point, and we started to develop Ocean Planner to answer these questions. So Ocean Planner is an operational platform which assesses both things: the cost for industry based on regulation of the activities and the environmental benefits. And this is done at a regional level. So what the tool is doing, it looks at the shipping, and in terms of cost, it will look at what delays can be induced when you start to regulate the ocean, and how does the fuel consumption changes when you regulate the sea. And for the environmental part, we started with underwater noise because that was our core expertise. But then we decided to extend that to two other environmental issues, which is the emission of CO2 and the collisions, ship strikes between, the large whales and the large vessels. So the mitigation measures that is supported by the tool are, so you can draw different areas on a map and associate each area, each polygon, to a different type of mitigations. So there is the speed limit tool, where you will be able to define, to regulate the speed in this area. And for every mitigation measure, we can do that, associate each mitigation measure to one category of vessels. And we divide the maritime activities into 10 different categories. Then you can add some exclusion zones, area where vessels could not enter. One way is the traffic separation schemes. Restricted access is when vessels can only enter in an area if they are compliant with some limits, usually given by underwater noise limits given by class societies. And shipping trend is not really a regulation, but it's more to be able to consider that in the future, this or this activity may increase in terms of number of vessels or decrease. So how does it work? In terms of risk, we are evaluating, as I said, collisions and continuous noise. For collisions, we use 3 indicators. The platform is producing 3 indicators. One is the dangerousness, I will explain later, near-miss event, and theoretical potential mortality. And for continuous noise, we address 2 effects: disturbance and stress on one hand, and that's described by one indicator, which is a sound pressure level, and masking of equalization and communication, which is described by what we call the excess sound level, another indicator. Just to explain what is masking. Masking is what you all have already experienced when you are in a bar at the beginning of the night. It's very calm. You can order your beer or your bottle of wine very easily. And when the music starts and it's crowded of people, if you want to order your bottle of wine or your beer, you have to go to talk very closely to the barman if you want to get it. So how does it work? Ocean Planner is a platform. It's fed by shipping data, which is based on automated identification systems. And it's connected to a ship database so that we know, have some interesting information about the characteristics of the vessels. And we are connected to some databases about species data, the habitat of the species and how they are distributed. Then the platform is connected to another platform, which is our historical platform, Quanops, which is producing sound maps. And this platform also uses a bunch of input data, the ship database as well, because the sound depends on the characteristics of the vessel, and ocean databases like bathymetry and sediments, because that influence a lot the propagation of the sound in the ocean. Copernicus is providing temperature and salinity. And of course, we need some ground truth. So we also have sensors, acoustic sensors, hydrophones in the ocean to ground truth the models. And Ocean Planner then is able to broadcast the results to other digital platforms, which is something we do actually currently with in a project with the Saturn project, which is funded by the EU. And we do that with CNR in Venice on the CEA MSP tool. So how do we calculate the collision risk? So there are 3 indicators, as I said. The first one is dangerousness, which is a mix between the trajectory and the speed. So it's independent from the presence or not of the species. If you are very fast and if you travel a lot, your risk is higher than if you don't. The second indicator is the near-miss event indicator, where we mix the trajectory and the species distribution. It calculates the probability to have an animal along the trajectory of the vessels, but it does not account for the speed. And the last one is the theoretical potential mortality, where you mix the trajectory, species distribution, and speed. It basically takes the near-miss events, and the assumption behind that is that each near-miss event, if it becomes a collision, which is not always the case, hopefully. From the speed, what is the probability to have a mortality according to the speed of the vessel? The faster you are, the more chance you have to kill the animal. For the other metrics, fuel consumption and CO2, we basically applied what is suggested by the International Maritime Organization, which takes the ship type, capacity of the vessel, and speed of the vessel, and specific fuel consumption for some category of vessels. And from that, we derive the fuel consumption and the emission of CO2. So let's go to a few examples and also a few explanations on how it works. So this is what we start with. This is an AES data, where this is in Pelagos, and this is the real data, where you have each data point here is the position of a vessel, and the color tells you the speed. So if you are in the blue, you are above 20 knots or 20 knots. And if you are in the green, you are not moving. So you can see that the traffic is actually the fast vessels are very structured. I mean, they always follow the same routes, and that's mainly the ferries who are connecting the land with the islands. Where the other shipping is much slower and more sparse. So that's what we start with, and what Ocean Planner is doing. Here is an example where we defined graphically on the Pelagos Sanctuary a speed limit area. And we said, okay, this speed limit is for the passenger vessels, the ro-ro vessels, so the ferries, the cargo, the containers, cruise vessels, and tankers. Okay, so fishing is not going to be affected, and some other activities will not be affected. And what the algorithm is doing is that it takes all the trajectories of all the vessels and will modify the actual trajectories so that it complies with the regulation. So in terms here in this example where it's a speed limit, it will slow down, so it will change the speed, which will have some impact on the emission of underwater noise. Will also have impact on the mortality because you are slower for collisions. And it will also change the time of the trajectory, okay, which is quite important. But if it's an exclusion zone, for example, then the algorithm will recalculate the route so that it avoids the area, okay, by maintaining the same speed. And you can combine all these different measures in the same scenario. So then what is done is that the QuantOps platform is going to calculate the underwater sound for the actual situation, the underwater sound for the regulated situation, and then compare both. Here is the example. If you do a speed limit of 10 knots for these categories, then you will reduce the noise like this, so up to 10 decibels, and mainly on the east part of Corsica. It looks at the ship strikes, what the effect of slowing down in the Pelago Sanctuary in terms of ship strikes. It will calculate the number of vessels who are going to have, I mean, the effect of that measure will have consequences for how many vessels for each categories, as you can see here on the left. And it also calculates how much this mortality indicator is going to be reduced for each categories. And that's with that, you can see how efficient is this going to be in terms of collision risk. So it also looks at the cost for industry. So first, it provides information on how many vessels will be impacted. So how many vessels will have to reduce the speed. And here you can also compare, we did two scenarios where we compared 10 knots limit and 12 knots limits. And you can see, for example, that cargo and tankers are quite sensitive. If you go by slowing down 12 knots or 10 knots, I mean, the number of cargo and tankers vessels who will be affected by this regulation is very different. So they have quite a high sensitivity there. In terms of fuel saving in the middle, so this is also calculated, and on the right you have the delays, which are the two key metrics for the industry. Okay, I'm going to accelerate a little bit. And then we can address some much more complex scenarios. And here we work together with ISMAR on who are developing MSP scenarios, strategies in the Adriatic Sea and some other places in Italy. And so you have basically three strategies: the blue development, the slow pace, and nature at work. I won't go. If you have any question on that, you should ask Andrea. And we are implementing these scenarios, these very complex scenarios where you have some trends, and it's different regulations for fishing, different regulations for the commercial vessels. You have some slowdown, some avoidance area, exclusion zones here in red. And you can see here, this is the effects of those scenarios for underwater noise. And you can see that we can evaluate whether it has some positive effects or negative effects. And I'm almost done. So Ocean Planner is a digital platform which enables comprehensive assessment of benefits and cost. Both of them, I think that's very important for the dialogue between the stakeholders so that we can make progress and we can foster acceptability of the measures. It supports underwater noise effects, ship strikes, CO2 emissions, that's for the environment, and delays and fuel consumption for the costs. And we are successfully performing a proof of concept with ISMAR in connecting this tool, which is very much specialized, and to integrate that into a more broader MSP process, which also deal with some other pollutions. And I think I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. I now think you're all scared of me. That's an interesting feeling. Okay, so I actually have a couple of questions. Starting with Thomas. I was just wondering, I know later today we're going to talk about pollution, but could you add, I mean, underwater noise is a type of pollution, but could you add other types of pollution to your tool? And how much sense does it make to have it like spatially restricted, if, for example, from anti-fouling? If we had data on that, would that be possible to incorporate into your tool, and would it make sense? Oh, could we put on the red mic? I think it's. Oh,
it's better. Yeah.
Yes, okay. That's working.
Actually, yeah, we did that. We started with underwater noise. And then we said, okay, actually, the core algorithm of Ocean Planner is to be able to process the AES data, so that all the trajectories of the vessels at the regional level for all the different categories, and to recalculate that, to reshape the traffic so that you have the same business, okay, but done differently on the ocean. That's the core value of Ocean Planner. And then you can apply that to quite a number of different pollutions as soon as you have data. So we started with underwater noise because that was the easiest one. But then we said, okay, now we have that, we can also do CO2 emissions. And then we said, okay, we can also do collisions because we had another project on collisions. And if there are any other pollutant, we would be continue to develop that, as long as we have data and a model that support that.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. And I was going to ask you, because you also mentioned underwater noise and connecting it to marine spatial planning. Is it this what you had in mind, or are you working on something else? It would be just interesting to hear from you.
Well, it's interesting to see how this type of pressure is being considered in the MSP, let's say, fora, arena, and plans. And we could see that is considered, although at an initial stage, but it's going to be more and more considered. The emphasis of MSP is considering then all the uses together, all the pressures together, try to reconcile the different uses to the same, to use the same space and reducing the impact. So this is definitely one of the, let's say, pressures from continuous and non-continuous sources that needs to be considered. Although, and this was part of the results of the study we carried out, this analysis of MSP plans, we have to be aware that MSP is not the unique policy that is regulating underwater noise, maritime transport, of course. So you do not have to pretend to only use MSP, but MSP together with other, let's say, types of policies and policy streams.
I find that interesting, and maybe something we can dig more into. I see we have questions online, so I can't see your name, but please, I think it's just one person. Oh, is it Katja?
Yes,
Katja.
it's me. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Oh, this is perfect. So it's good for my presentation. Thank you very much, Thomas. That was very, very interesting what you presented here. I was just wondering whether noise isn't that easy, at least from my perspective and experience and knowledge. So the question on that ships stay longer in the area if they are slow steaming might be also important to consider, because I know there are publications that even the presence of ships are relevant in that context, and also if there are more ships needed, if those ships are slow steaming in that area. And another factor is that you increase the nitrogen emissions by slow steaming. So there are, of course, some more things to be considered. And my question is, are you planning to go a bit deeper in that questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is all very true. So there are connections between, for example, if you reduce the speed, there will be effects also on the emission of CO2, which is, I mean, yeah, there are many things connected also because the energy efficiency of the vessels may have both effects on underwater noise and on the emission of greenhouse gases. Sorry, I forgot. I wanted to say something, but I forgot.
Maybe we can come back to it because we do have a discussion session at the end of this. Yes, Benjamin, please.
Thank you. This workshop is about connectivity, and I'm connecting some dots here. I'm very, very pleased, and I feel good about it, that we are now seeing from the Saturn project such extraordinary results coming out. You are copying and then furthering the model from Vancouver Port, from Lindy Weilgard and colleagues from Dalhousie, and bringing this to Europe. This is great. And at the time, we were also, we have in the JPI Oceans, we have had a call on underwater noise. We are now covering 5 projects or consortia with it. And we have been in contact with your coordinator of Saturn at the time to set up our call. So there is complementarity there. And I would invite you also to the final meeting that we are having for our project in the JPI Oceans later this year. And I will make some contact for you to attend. But the question that I would have now is, how far are you leaning on the MSFD process, and are you in contact with the European Commission regarding the descriptor 11 on this topic?
Yes, very much. I'm part of the technical group on underwater noise, appointed by the so I'm very much aware. I'm even proposing things. And of course, the way I mean, everything is online with all the methodology that is developed by the TG Noise.
Okay, great. Excellent. So I changed my mind. Should we see if we can come back to what you wanted to mention? Katja, do you want to re-ask your question? I think we might as well, now that we're discussing, we can use some of the time that we have later. It was something you wanted to mention, Thomas.
Alzheimer.
Okay. No worries. So oh yes, please. Can we get a microphone to the gentleman in the back, please? Oops.
I just wanted to ask how do you manage the different scale of the data flows? Because, for example, species distributions can have very coarse resolution. You just often have just the areal of the species or very coarse distribution or indications. So assessing when very detailed trajectory meets an animal or can meet an animal can produce very coarse assessments often, no? So since this is pretty new ideas, mixing together different types of information, the scale of the data can be very different, so that you might produce information that are against what people would expect or against the interest of maritime environments.
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of people working on so-called habitat modeling for species. So it's based on observations, which, as you say, are very course. And but they are correlating the observations with the environmental parameters. We are even starting to correlate that with noise maps as well, to introduce noise maps into the habitat models. But basically, there is a very large community in working in these models. The number of data is increasing. Okay, and so what we use is the results of these habitat models. Of course, there is uncertainties in that. So we're not claiming that we are telling the exact truth. It's a decision aid. And so if the description of the density of species, for example, in Pelagos Sanctuary, for example, there was some new habitat models produced just now, which is the one we have used. And what is important is that we compare two situations, the actual situation with a regulated one. What is interesting is not the absolute numbers, it's the sensitivity you have. Okay, for how much are you going to reduce? Are you going to reduce, which category of vessels is going to reduce the most the risk of collision, for example, or the risk for underwater noise, so that you can target, you know that from the analysis, what one information is, which industry, which activity, which maritime activity we should focus on so that we are the most efficient at a cost that is acceptable. Okay. But making the difference between two situations reduces the uncertainty.
Thank you very much. So I'm thinking maybe you stay up here and we have one theme left, and we can have all the presenters that are in the room stay up for come up later. So Joseph, do you want to come up now and join them here? And we also have one more person in the room, but you can come up later. But Katja, now it's Katja. And so thank you. We should say thank you one more time to you. Okay, so that was our coastal management and maritime spatial planning topic. And so now we move into our last topic. So maybe we can prepare Katja's presentation. And that last topic is pollution. So we sort of touched upon it now. Can we add other types of pollution to the model we just heard about? And I think we're going to hear a bit more about that, not about adding it, but about pollution from Katja Brug, who is at the German Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I shared my screen. I hope you can see it all. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a very, very interesting workshop, and I enjoyed very much to be part of it. My name is Katja Brug. I'm marine biologist, environmental toxicologist, and as you said, working for the German Maritime and Hydrographic Agency, BSH, in the section Sustainable Shipping. Some words about BSH. So we are the Maritime Authority of Germany, around 1,000 employees and working in 2 locations in Hamburg and Rostock. We have 5 vessels and also laboratories for chemical analysis and provide services to shipping, nautical and hydrographic information services, for example, marine data services. And we are also performing environmental monitoring. We thereby aim at ensuring sustainability in maritime transport. This is the main focus of my section, but also maritime safety and security. And we are also the main authority for maritime spatial planning in Germany and the approval of offshore wind farms and ballast water management systems. So I will tell a bit today about ship emissions to water. We've heard about many aspects already from the former presentations. So my focus will be what comes out and why does it matter environmentally, but also in the for the whole process of shipping. I will give some recommendations or information about specific measures to reduce those emissions. And this is what I also find very important is the interactions between different shipping emissions and how they should be considered. So what you see here is a figure from my dear colleague Ida Meyer-Hasteleff from Chalmers University in Sweden, and she has a working group very much focusing on shipping emissions. And you see it's quite a lot, and 15 minutes are of course not enough. So I focus on those marked emissions because of one reason, and this is that they are very much interacting with each other, partly so that specific measures on one emission might also have positive outcome for the other one. I would start with antifouling. You mentioned that in your question already. So why do we have to use antifouling? You see what happens if you don't use antifouling. It's because we want to prevent the settlement of marine organism or aquatic organism on the infrastructure and on the ships. Thereby, we increase the energy efficiency and we reduce the risk of invasive species introduction, of course, of corrosion, and also of underwater radiated noise, which we've heard about already in the presentations before. And of course, it's also becoming safety relevant if you have a biofouling, which looks like that on the picture. So what are the kind of emissions? So that depends strongly on the antifouling system used. So that might be biocides released, metals, particles, but also ultrasonic noise, since this technique is also applied. So we had the TBT in former times used that was entering in a very bad situation, that you have this androgenic compound intentionally released and near the extinction of specific snails, which showed then penis in female organisms, and they couldn't reproduce anymore. And so TBT has become banned. And nowadays we are still relying on zinc and copper when it comes to contaminants in biocides in antifouling systems. And in the context of in-water cleaning, which is more and more necessary between dry docking periods, you will get much more contaminants released during those cleaning activities, and you have, of course, the impact on the marine organisms. So it depends, what I said, the impact on what AFS is chosen. And I always picked up some possible solutions. One is that you really go for customized biocide-free antifouling systems and combine that with corresponding proactive biofouling management. This has been shown to be effective on one hand and lowering the pollution and the contaminant impact on the other. So the next aspect is the scrubber discharge water. So why do we use, or why are scrubbers used? They are washing systems, exhaust gas cleaning systems, and they are used to comply with the sulfur cap instead of alternative low sulfur fuels. And the contaminants released by scrubber discharge water are vanadium, nickel, and PAHs mainly. There are several others, but they have the biggest part of it, but also particles and acids. And the impact depends strongly, of course, on the vulnerability of the sea area and the ship traffic and the number of ships using scrubbers. But what has been shown that there are long-term effects by accumulation of toxic compounds possible, and it's also increasing acidification of the marine environment. When it comes to solutions, so of course the use of compliant fuels instead of scrubbers is the main solution to that. But you can also use scrubber in zero discharge mode and dispose the scrubber discharge then in PRF and port reception facilities. And what you see here is the outcome of one project running at BSH using a drift model where to identify where the high risk areas could be for contamination. And the spot you see here is a ferry connection, and the company running those ferries has decided to switch from normals or to employ the zero discharge mode with PRF disposal, so that that they use scrubbers but they don't have any impact. So the solution here comes directly from a modeling which showed that there might be a high impact. Continuous noise, we've heard already, thanks to Thomas, so I don't have to say so much in addition. Of course, every shipping operation causes noise, sound waves that propagate in the water. And you've already heard about masking, but we also see behavioral changes, physiological stress, and in noise-sensitive species, which are a number, including invertebrates. And what can be done as first step, of course, is to follow the IMO guidelines on underwater radiated noise. They are now in a experience building phase where you can report any new developments when it comes to noise reduction to the IMO to inform and get more measures in place and recommended in these guidelines. Another emission is the management of ballast water to avoid the introduction of harmful aquatic organisms and pathogens. You might all have heard about that. So what is released are disinfection byproducts if you have your operation disturbed or you have malfunctioning of the system. And those byproducts have toxicity towards marine organisms. They are used to have these effects. And the solution could be a proper maintenance and monitoring of the system. And what has to be monitored urgently is the total residual oxidants, which are the disinfection products. And if something is not working, use of mobile ballast water management systems in ports in case of contingency. So I would just come up a quick glance on co-benefits, what I said in the beginning. So it's the opportunity to address mandatory IMO requirements and have possible co-benefits for other environmental pressures. And therefore, I made up this table where you can see the mandatory requirements and the possibilities to also reduce noise, contaminants, biocide emissions, emission of particles, and introduction of invasive species. I think it's a bit, time consuming to go too much into detail here. But what you really can say is that if you apply the not mandatory but guidelines on biofouling and underwater radiated noise, you have co-benefits with nearly all other emission kinds of emission which are mentioned above. So there is a strong interconnection between requirements or present in the shipping sector and the international governance, which, if they are clever applied, you have the opportunity to also address other issues. So I think that the presentations are shared with the participants that you can have a closer look into that. And you see, of course, that these biofiring guidelines, by have a clean ship and have a ship hull which is not fouled, is very strongly interacting with energy efficiency. And the underwater radiated noise guidelines are very much interconnected to energy efficiency. Thomas showed an example already. And you have also very much interaction between those two guidelines. So at IMO, the governance is mainly focusing on single base, on single emission basis. I think it would be very good to share the word, spread the word that opportunities should be taken to use those co-benefits for sustainability and efficiency, and put biodiversity on the business agenda more and more. I think this becomes more and more important. So operation is one very important aspect, which is also a low-hanging fruit, which can be considered. And then we come to the digitalization and all this digital machine learning aspects, which can be used to clever plan the operation to make it more sustainable. And finally, in this context today, where ports are also very relevant in this workshop, they are also relevant when it comes to emissions with regard to the availability of port reception facilities, of mobile ballast water management systems, of course, sustainable and water cleaning opportunities, which have to be developed and applied, and when it comes to fees. And yeah, there might be much more, which I haven't considered yet, but I think is also part of the discussion. Thank you. If you have time and interest, you can have a look to working group SHIP. This is an IC's working group, and we are very much dealing with those interaction holistic assessments. And you have a further reading on those projects. And Saturn is not on it, but Saturn has already mentioned. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Katja. Thank you. So we're just, there is some message here. We don't know what's happening with the TV. Oh, there it went black. Oh, well. I think, are you online still? I think you're still seeing the presentations and us. So we continue and we let them deal with this. Okay, thank you very much, Katja. Sorry, it was this TV thing that got me distracted. But I think now we continue with the second presentation for this topic, and then we will have some question. And so Joseph Sanz Argent, sorry for my poor pronunciation of many of your names, from Fundación Valencia Port. Please, the floor is yours. So I think this is.
Is this your presentation?
It is.
This is?
That's the one, yeah. No.
Yeah? Yes.
That's the one.
What is the name of the presentation? Is the name of this? What is the name of your presentation?
Not there.
No, okay.
Is there some others? Good morning. Can you hear me well? Hello? Okay. Good morning. I'm going to talk about pollution, specifically air pollution and the innovative experiences that we have had at the Port of Valencia. Okay. First, just a word about Fundación Valencia Port. We are a different entity from the Port Authority. Even though we are an initiative of the Port Authority, we are a private non-profit, which main goal is to promote innovation at the port activities. Mainly focus on the clusters of the port managed by the Port Authority, but not just into it. In a port, there are many activities. We are specifically debated in these areas, and related to the topics that we have discussed today are mainly blue economy, which is in a specific area, but also energy transition and sustainability, in which the focus air pollution fall between these two areas, but we have also talked about a little bit about safety and security. So when talking about air pollution, with these regards, we give mainly support to the Port Authority, even though the Port Authority has not among their responsibilities to do pretty much anything related to air pollution is inside their environmental policy to do and to promote things. So we have been actively supporting the Port Authority, and I'm going to share some results, even though I will not share many final results, but rather like evaluations on potential options in order to further develop in future works and in order to identify, let's say, interesting ideas. So we divide the things, the main 4 axes related to air pollutions we have on the interest that a port has. One of them is to identify the impact of the Port Authority, especially considering that usually ports are next to cities, and air pollution is a source of potential complaints. So it's important to know how the port specifically is impacting with regards to air quality. In order to do so, you have to measure, specifically measuring both air quality and the specific sources of emissions, in which, in the case of ports, the main source of emissions are vessels, but not restricted to vessels. And finally, the 4th axis, to be able to do things preventing future undesirable events. And a tool for doing that, a useful tool, is have some prediction modeling of the future events. So that have been the axes that we have focused in several innovation initiatives that you see below, Green Seaports, NEMO, and Perseo, in which 4 things have been mainly developed: a characterization of the port with different strategic approaches, the development of the sensors network. We have already explored several approaches for remote measuring, and finally, a model has been developed. I will not go to bury the details of all the aspects, but it's open to the discussions to go deeper into, just mainly because of time limitations. So regarding air quality, like the formal way of doing that is through environmental cabins and Green Seaports project, which is a CEF initiative. So CEF, it's closer to deployment rather than purely innovation. It has allowed to install 2 environmental cabins. Specifically, does this work? Specifically, these 2, which, as you can see, are in the boundaries of the city. So it's like a way of evaluating in some way how the port is impacting the city. As an additional benefit of this has been included in the regional network of environmental cabins. So that's some data that is shared and provided to the region. These type of devices are quite high maintenance and expensive. So they are more expensive at high maintenance to calibrate and so on, and to maintain the quality of data. So we in Green Seaports have been evaluated another lower cost approaches in order to have a good picture of not just the boundary, but the whole port. Specifically in Green Seaports, electrochemical sensors, low-cost sensors, have been deployed throughout the port, and the quality of the data has been compared to the, as you can see, there are 2 point of sensors located right next to the environmental cabins. So the quality of data of the low cost have been compared to the high quality options. And we have learned a lot about that. Apart from that, which that sensor network provides real-time data in order to evaluate the impact of the port activity, there are other approaches. In this case, through the use of passive collectors, it's another way of, you have to forget about the time resolutions, but your approach is to evaluate the accumulations of pollutants and improve the spatial resolutions, because you can develop a huge network of them. That provides you like hotspot, like heat maps, like these ones. And this has been done in 2 campaigns, 1 week each. So has give us a lot of information on where the difficult areas are. And what we have learned from that exercise is also it's not enough to consider just the port, but it's important to also consider the city. So even though in this case, some of the locations were outside the port itself, it is as a following work, we are starting collaborating with the city to do like an overall exercise, including both a similar network in the city and in the port. That will provide us a lot of information. So here you can see some of the type of results that this kind of exercise provides. So finally, Green Seaports also allowed us to develop a dispersion modeling. Dispersion modeling there are a lot of uncertainties in a port environment. So this is just considered a first step. It's important to have the weather forecast. So based on the data of the meteorological stations in the port, provides as input the boundary conditions to the WRF model, and we have a local weather forecast for the dispersion model. It's a Lagrangian model. That means that you follow individual particles, you model individual particles. And also consider other sources of information, mainly the port activity. So that's something that is run every day for having the predictions for the following day. And thanks to this, it's possible to identify potential issues that could be happened in the following day and then act in order to prevent that. In order to be able to do so, that's some results provided by the dispersion model. And in order to actually not just have data, but also be able to do something with the data, is important to store it somewhere and also share it with the people in charge of doing something. That has been done in Green Seaports thanks to a port environmental platform, which is a platform that receives a lot of data from different sources, for example, the sensors network or the dispersion model and an additional technology that was initially developed in Green Seaports, which is a remote measuring camera. And not only stores the information, but also send alerts. So in order to responsibles to be able to do something. So this was the main results from Green Seaports. Another initiative more related to innovation is NEMO, in which 2 pilots were carried out in the environment of the Port of Valencia, both of them related to remote measuring using different technologies. First, train was measured with something that Opus, the partner, calls remote sensor device. So this is an spectrographic device. There is a camera that analyzes the radiation that arrives to them, and there is also a source of radiation. So you know the characteristics of the light emitted, and depending on the qualities of absorbance at different wavelengths, you can have a measurement of the characteristics of the plume. That's a technology already validated for road transport, but in this case, the challenge was to use it, to deploy it in another application, which is train. And in the end, it was shown to be possible to use this technology. And other approach is to actually use air quality data and combine it with port activity data in order to further analyze the air quality data and relate it to pollutions in the plume. If you imagine, for example, a vessel entering into the port and having a plume, at some point may reach a specific point when you can locate air quality measuring systems, and you will end having some output like this one. So you have the time axis, and you will know like different events. Some of them are directly related to the fact that the vessel is entering. With further analysis of this data, and for example, eliminating the background and analyzing ratios between, for example, CO2 and SO2, you can gather more information and obtain even results from the actual vessel. And that was the objective of the NEMO pilot, and it was found that it's an interesting approach. In this case, it was like a mobile station, but we can consider it like to further use of this information in the sensor web network that we have seen before. So finally, final technology. This is one technology developed in green seaports as well, which is a camera, spectrographic camera. So similar approach that the one used here.
Place. And if we are not, the Blue Economy Partnership or ZOOT, are not delivering on these objectives of the Commission, then we are jeopardizing at the end of the day our existence in the next framework program. We have to consider that. That is my personal view. That's not the ministry view, not my funding agency. It's my personal view now. I have to stress that. Sorry. Thank you. Any other ideas? Yes.
I just wanted to point out,
Sure.
thank you, Paulo, because you took word by word what I was literally about to say, which is that, of course, the legal frameworks are very different, but they're also complementary. And we do have the Blue Economy pillar, which is where we can find common grounds. And then I was going to go where you went just now, which is Marlene. And Marlene is our common ground. So I think if we can actively participate in Marlene and just communicate, as we were saying earlier, it should be fine.
But it needs also a bit of a top-down control on that. Yeah, Jessica, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I also think that after today's workshop, there needs to be some work to analyze a little bit further coming topics, because now we're all, it's pretty broad still, and that again brings us to the difference between the two partnerships and the possibilities of carrying out such a work and sort of on a daily basis. So I think this is one sort of difficulty as we go along, that the partnerships are different, and we need to find ways of working that is suitable to both. So I think because we need to narrow it down, I think, and see specifically and put it in the context of everything that's going on. All the, like, for example, we heard from the European Commission right at the beginning today. So what is not being addressed within this context of lots of different types of initiatives, not just our two partnerships, but lots of other initiatives, and really find that gap. Or maybe it's not so much the topic we need to find, but rather the instrument and how to address it. So that could also be something. So a little bit of more analytic work, I think, before we can move forward in a way that creates impact. Thanks.
You were very wisely saying exactly what my thinking also was for the last couple of weeks. I just wanted to kind of note that the agreement that we are actually doing something together was signed in 23. autumn 23 by both parties. So, and it took us, now we are in 25 April, and it took us more than a year actually to kind of put all the frame pieces around our jigsaw. So, and now we need to find all the different other pieces that fit into the center. But we should not forget what the final picture would look like, because otherwise we can't sort it out. So it's just continue this image. We need to find the tools right now. And Margarita.
Thank you, Jessica. I fully support what you said. And now the mentioning of Marlene, we have two colleagues representing also Marlene here from the Italian partner, APRE. Maybe add an opportunity or we will see. I would just like to inform that according to our framework, in February next year, we will have to submit the proposal for our last third and last phase of the partnership, at least in this framework program. And of course, we have some flexibility in agreement with the consortium and the General Assembly to accommodate some tailored action beside the joint calls. So this is worth thinking together whether we could address a dedicated action in our last work plan, having the technology platform on board. I'm not speaking about the partnership because it's more complicated, but in order to fulfill and follow up on the joint declaration, and from our perspective, all this connection and mobilization of the industrial partner is something that towards which we aim a lot, or the connectivity between these two different TRL perspective that of course are more advanced in your work.
Okay. Are there comments, questions from the online audience as well? That seems not to be the case. So then, a few minutes early, if you're ready, I would give the floor to Emilio Fortunato Campana, who will lead the discussion on the operational development continued.
So quickly, let me say that on the top of all the last part of this discussion that was interesting, we all know that we have the partnership perspective, the commission perspective, the end user perspective. From the scientific point of view, let me say something about our perspectives, because we are here is a place of science, and so we are studying these methods. So for me and for us, I think it has been especially clear this afternoon that the tools and the method and the approach are very close among the two sectors, among the, let's say, ecosystem and marine science and the hydrodynamic ship design, and as a whole, not only the hydrodynamic body, but ship design in general. So they are using very similar topics and methods and approaches. We are using probably some kind of equation for simulating some stuff, some of the ecosystems like currents or the ocean, and we are doing the same as fluid dynamicist. We are using a lot now of artificial intelligence to make prediction, extrapolation, and interpolation, and let's say to have a fast forward effect on what we see, and we can proceed in a quick way to anticipate the development of the systems before we are doing even the data and collecting the measurements. We can also use artificial intelligence to feel the gaps that we have in the data with a great success between known probability, which is a great announcement with respect to the standard methods of interpolation. So we are really using similar tools. So we can, I push myself further to anticipate that in a few years, there will be not a difference among these two fields in terms of tools. So we will use exactly the same tools, let's say, with the speed that we saw in the last 5 years. I can anticipate that in the next 5 years, we will use the same tools. No way. So if we use the same tools, and if this is the place where we have to foresee the future, we can anticipate that there is no purpose on having separated partnerships and place inside the commission like DG Mare, DG Research, DG something else. I mean, it's the ocean is one unique system, and we have to study this system. And now we have the tools and the data. The data is the other big problem. So we have the same tool. We are going to have the same tools, and we need to share the data. So the big question for the Commission is that how to force the stakeholders to share the data. And I think this is very simple. I mean, it's for me as a scientist, it's very simple. We have to force them to share the data. If you don't, it's like imposing the shipyards to build the second hull in the interior hull to avoid accident and spilling oil. If you don't build a second hull, you can still build your ship, but the ship will not attract to any pier because we don't give you the permission to attract to any pier. So it's very simple. So you have to have this data. So they need to share at least some part of the data. So if we want to have an impact on the next few years on the Commission, on the stakeholders, and on the citizens, we have to say two things. There is no need for so many. I prepared, let me open a parenthesis. I was preparing one slide, but then I gave up because it was too complex. And the slide was a kind of a map of all the bodies that we have in Europe dealing with the sea, from the Marine Board to Waterborne, to the SBEP, to Mission Ocean, there are so many, to the national clusters, to, I don't know, really many. So there is no need for all this stuff. All this stuff is a waste of money. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. So we need to have a larger one, big, with all these things together, because the problems are the same. The pollution creates a shortcut. Plastics, pollution, underwater noise makes a shortcut between the human activities and an effect on the system. So we have to work together and use this stuff. And the other thing is that to fight for data, which is the major important thing. So this is was only my comment and introduction to the last session. So if you have comments, maybe I was, let's say, too extreme, but I want to hit the last 5 minutes of discussion. Please.
Thank you very much, Emilio. And I would like to continue your thoughts by confirming that there are initiatives already on their way. For example, the Euro Ship program that looks exactly into this consolidation. And I was attending last year a workshop of this Euro Ship program. And we basically did what you just kind of mentioned. We put all these different initiatives on a big chart and discussed which of them are redundant at which level. data generation, data hosting, and so on and so forth. And in fact, it turned out that the partnerships, they were kind of just like an umbrella above it. So they were really looking forward. So the community of the individual initiatives, they were really supportive and looking forward that our partnership would kind of take on their duty in having a structuring effect. But this appears to be some kind of a worry, because it's not kind of as easy as it may seem in the first place. So because this kind of fragmentation in different organizations and initiatives, they are very, very strong and solid and grounded for many, many years and decades sometimes. And to tell them now, you can leave, we have a better idea, that is also not the concept to it. So we need to be very, very diplomatic and careful how we continue in this consolidation.
Of course, I agree with you. You're right. I was, as I said, I was a little extreme on that, because I've been spending a long time in this type of institution, seeing almost, I wouldn't say no changes, but small changes. So it's a quasi-steady approach, which means that quasi-steady means steady. So we need sometimes the little steps that we with which we try to afford a path from A to B seems as the only way, the only possible way. But sometimes we have to make a bigger one. So, sorry. So the new technologies give us the possibility to say that this organization is no longer functional to deploying to our continent a sufficient state-of-the-art system for making marine science and marine engineering be efficient in sustaining life in the ocean and in the Mediterranean, in the sea, in a proper way. And inefficient would be, I think, the right word. I'm not saying that we are not doing a good job. We are all doing a good job, but the system is inefficient. I'll make you one example just for fun. Huh? Let me take co-working, okay? The principle that we all work in this way. Not co-working, the word is co-design. Co-design, okay. I have nothing against the co-design. But the co-design sometimes is the ideas of the majority. That does not mean that it's a good idea. Sometimes it's a process in which we go together in the wrong direction. So sometimes we need a quick decision, or maybe a lot of discussion, but a decision which breaks the rule. And I feel that this is the moment, because something new is happening in politics, and we all read newspaper, and you can have any type of idea on what is happening in the relation. It is clear, however, that Europe has to come through in a strong way as a unique continent. Okay, that's a matter of survival. So if we need a political inspiration, we have artificial intelligence and big data. And I would say also space, data from space. If we need an inspiration, now we have, because all these things are coming together and are very important. They are changing completely the way in which we are studying. We are using science. Science is changing. The number of research that we have now will not be necessary in the near future, because it's what we are doing will be done by artificial intelligence, even the researcher work. So there will be less need for researchers and more need from high-level researchers and a lot of technicians that are using blue-collar AI, okay? So this is changing. So if we are a living society and a living community for science, we have to be aware of these changes. We have to anticipate the changes. This is research. To anticipate this, the future is in front of us. And I think we can easily see if we look at. So simplification of this structure, decision made on science and not on co-design, the need for a pact on data in between Europe, between Commission, industries, science. We need to do that. I think this is a very important point. Sorry, I was very long again.
I think you are very well on point, but we are going into a meta-level discussion here rather than talking about how Zoot Waterborne can interact with the Zoot Blue partnership. But technically, you're right, and this is exactly. I just wanted to confirm the co-creation versus. So I call it as a marine biologist, I call that top-down versus bottom-up control. So both has its values, and to come out with a most democratic direction, we need to have actually both. So bottom up co-creation, but also top down. And this, yeah, it's not going to work only one way.
And to make you, Emilio, even angrier, we know that there is another upcoming player that is the Kick Marine.
Oh, yes.
So for this reason, I didn't support a lot the very important and fundamental proposal about skills. I mean, it's the thing, but I was not raising my hand because, again, it's not really our framework now that we know that there is the maritime and water knowledge and innovation community starting up in next year. So this also has to be considered if we want to make a realistic proposal on how to move forward.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to say that I think I worked in management in public sector for 15 years. And I know how valuable it is to have access to industry, and you always want to work with industry networks. However, from industry's point of view, there is always the question, but what's in it for us? And so I think we need to be careful here when we have industry networks and industry representatives. You can easily get lost in all the discussion that we're having now. So I think we need also to sort of look at it from the other direction and see, okay, well, if you're an industry actor and you have very limited time in engaging in what we were discussing here now, we have to be very to the point in what we can offer. So we in Waterborne, for example, there is this great network of industry members. But I think from looking from the outside and into Waterborne, there also needs to be a pitch. What can we offer the industry network? And it's not only Waterborne. I mean, in general, really. So I think we need to be really careful there, because if we, I think we need to treat networks like that very. What's the right word? Well, I don't know what the right word is, so we'll skip the word. But I think just keeping in mind that industry, we all have our own discourse, right, that we live in and that we deal with on a daily basis, and sometimes they are very different from each other. So I think we just need to respect that and be sure that we can always point at the value for industry, whatever industry it is. Or I think we're going to widen the gap between industry and policy, and that's not what we want right now. We want the sort of to be hand in hand. So just listening to the discussion, I just wanted to point out the importance of that. So that is also maybe a question we can take with us from today. Okay, so how can we pitch the relevance of SPEP to Waterborne members, for example? Like what would be what further or added value could they get from a closer cooperation? Yeah, thank you.
Questions? Okay, so I think that this and the this full day of discussion on these two partnerships on these topics. I was very happy to have you here, also the people connected. I think this is the first workshop of this type of because we understood that now it's it will be helpful to have discussion like this on different topics. Today we have discussing about logistics and ports and marinas and fishing, decarbonizing fishing fleet, but in general we can pick up more topics and have a look at what is to be developed together. And maybe in the next framework, we can work directly together, because next time we will build a unique partnership. Who knows? So thank you very much for coming, and have a good day.
And to be honest, we should also thank also the colleagues here that run the technical aspects of it.